many people debate who was the greatest American president. A lot of people would say it was Abraham Lincoln. Some people would say it was JFK. Others would say it was George Washington. They're all good choices, but there's no definitive answer. However, there is a definitive answer: who was the craziest American president? Let's look at the 7th president, Andrew Jackson. A man called Richard Lawrence tried to assassinate Jackson with 2 pistols, but both guns misfired. Jackson chased the man and beat him with his cane. Richard Lawrence is the first person to try and assassinate an American president. I know what you're thinking. Beating someone with a cane? That's not crazy. I'm just getting you warmed up. Jackson enlisted in the Revolutionary War as a courier when he was only 15 with his brother Robert. Sadly, both were kidnapped by British officers. While they were kidnapped, one British officer demanded Jackson to polish his boots. When Jackson refused, the officer struck him in the head with his sword. Jackson was left with a scar on his forehead for the rest of his life. Jackson and his brother contracted smallpox when they were kidnapped. Jackson's mother, Elizabeth, eventually negotiated her boys to be freed. Sadly, Robert and Elizabeth both died from smallpox that year. Jackson was an orphan at 17. Jackson detested owing people money so much that he vowed to pay off America's entire national debt himself when he became president. Now, this sounds like a typical false promise a politician makes to win a presidency. It's not even realistic. Jackson was insisting that he could pay off $58 million of debt. That's $800 million by today's standards. That's nearly double what George Washington had in his entirety. Nevertheless, it only took him 6 years to fulfill his promise due to careful planning and tight spending. Jackson owned horses called Bolivia, Emily, Lady Nashville, Sam Patches, and Truxton. Although it is custom for a new president to meet the previous president before they are sworn in, Jackson refused to meet Quincy Adams. Although Jackson had very little schooling, he learned ridiculously quickly. He studied at 18, became a lawyer at 20, a solicitor at 21, a senator at 30, and a judge at 31. At the time, Jackson was the youngest Congress senator in American history. He is also the only American president to be a prisoner of war. He was the first president to ride on a train. His nickname was Old Hickory. He got the nickname because he had a hickory cane that he would use to beat people up, because that's what you look for in a president. When he became president, he had a drinking party with 20,000 people. Do you know what we call a drinking party with 20,000 people in Ireland? Tuesday. His most famous quote is simply, "To the victors belong the spoils." Jackson believed the earth was flat. Anaximander of ancient Greece proved the earth was spherical in 550 BC. Jackson hated paper currency. His face is on the $20 bill. Hold on, my dog's acting up. He wants to get out. No! You might be thinking, okay, this Jackson guy does sound a bit weird, but I don't see how he's the craziest. Let's now look at what Jackson is most infamous for. He took part in at least 13 duels. He had some of these duels while he was president. The President of the United States directly killed people while he was president. Some people argue that recent presidents are warmongers, but you never seen George W. Bush or Donald Trump just pull out a gun at the White House and kill someone then and there in front of people. Yet. He wasn't even secretive about this. He had these duels behind the White House. The most famous duel was against Charles Dickinson. Not that one. Jackson challenged Dickinson to a duel after he called Jackson a coward and a scoundrel. Dickinson had already killed 26 people in previous duels. However, not only did Jackson not back down, he actually demanded that Dickinson have the first shot. Dickinson fired and hit Jackson, breaking 2 of his ribs with a bullet. Jackson shrugged it off and shot Dickinson dead. The bullet was lodged in Jackson's body for 19 years. It was too dangerous to remove, so he was forced to have metal shards in his chest for the rest of his life. Why does that sound familiar? The most common reason he dueled was when people insulted his wife. She was known as the American Jezebel, since Jackson wed her when she was already married. She died before he was sworn in. Upon her death, he said, "May God Almighty forgive her murders, as I know she forgave them. I never can." Another great quote he said was, "I have only 2 regrets. I didn't shoot Henry Clay, and I didn't hang John C. Calhoun." Do you know what that means? The only regrets of a man who killed 13 people is that he wishes he killed more. Oh, by the way, John C. Calhoun, he was Jackson's vice president. So based off his picture, he also may be Frankenstein's monster? Seriously, every picture, he looks like this. He died from edema, which is a swelling in the tissue below the skin. At Jackson's funeral, his parrot was kicked out for swearing. Even his parrot's not normal. The last thing Andrew Jackson ever said was, "I hope to meet each of you in heaven. Be good, children, all of you, and strive to be ready when the change comes." That's actually really sweet, in spite of the fact that he used to beat the hell out of people with a cane. And also, technically, he's a serial killer. Join in tomorrow, and we will once again be looking at 2 presidents this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.